Shall we
Please.
start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello everyone, good evening. Here we are on the final day of our 1 week FDP on
Hello,
Reimagining
sir.
Academy.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Am I?
Yes, you are audible. I think Fatima Rifa is also talking. Sabna or Fatima, who is
Hello, so let me start
okay.
once
Okay.
again. Good evening
Hello?
everyone.
Hello. Uh, am I the person to welcome the gathering?
Ma'am, you can welcome them, but before
We'll
that, I
start
have
it.
to anchor this program, okay?
Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Okay, let me start once again. Good evening, everyone. Here we are on the final day of our 1 week FDP on Reimaging Academia Innovations and Research Pathways. We know this has been a 1 week program, and here we are on this valedictory session. And this program is organized by Internal Quality Assurance Cell, IQAC, MES Ponnani College, in collaboration with Kerala State Higher Education Council, KSHEC. We will have a summarizing program of this 1 week, like the programs we have been conducting on a 1 week basis. But before that, for the session, let me invite Mrs. Sibna, Assistant Professor of Department of Physics from MES Ponnani College, to welcome everyone to this program formally. Ma'am, please.
So, good evening, one and all. Respected Principal Dr. A. Zubair, IQAC Coordinator Dr. V.U. Amira, our esteemed resource person of the day, Dr. P.P. NOUSHAD, dear participants and colleagues. So, for the last 1 week, we had been undergoing serious sessions by the most apt persons dealing with the topic, including new generation pedagogy, work life balance, future careers, skill based education, the research landscape, and in the AI. And today we'll be hearing from again a most apt resource person on an innovative topic. So, at this opportune time, on behalf of teaching fraternity of MES Ponnani College, I'd like to thank the most vibrant IQAC coordinator, Dr. V.U. Amira, for organizing FGP of this sort on academic innovations and future research pathways, which is the most need for the hour. And also, I'd like to thank our most dear principal for having given all the support for organizing this academic endeavors of this sort. So, moving on to the session, it's our privilege to welcome Dr. P.P. NOUSHAD, Professor at the School of Gandhian Thought and Development Studies, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, as the distinguished speaker for the concluding academic session of the 1 week faculty development program on Reimaging Academia, Innovations in Research and Future Pathways, organized under the aegis of IQAC MES Ponnani College with the support of KSHEC Trivandrum. Dr. Naushad holds postgraduate degrees in education, history, and sociology and earned his PhD in education under the UGC Teacher Fellowship Scheme. A rank holder in both MA and MEd from the University of Calicut, he began his career as a school teacher before transitioning to teacher education, serving 12 years at Farouk Training College, Calicut, before joining MG University as an associate professor in 2018. So I'd like to point out that I was also lucky to be a student of yours at Farouk Training College in 2008. I still remember you taking classes on psychology. Okay. So currently he's the director of School of Distance Education and Center for Online Education and joint director of IMPSS at MG University. Besides being a member of its planning board, he has also contributed significantly to various university academic bodies, including University Research Committee and Board of Studies. A dedicated researcher, Dr. NOUSHAD had successfully guided 7 PhDs and led multiple research projects funded by UGC, KSHEC, and SERV. His contributions extend to curriculum development, alternative education, peace education, and policy studies, along with their expertise in preparing school textbooks and conducting research for SERT Kerala. With over 100 national and international presentations, 50 research papers, and 6 books, Dr. Naushad's academic contributions are remarkable. He is also a resource person for UGC HRDC's PMMNT projects, various governmental and non-governmental agencies, and today he'll be handling a session on revolutionizing academia, integrating traditions, technology, and NEP-driven future learning. So we look forward to his insights and valuable perspectives as we conclude this enriching faculty development program. So I welcome all my colleagues. I welcome the resource person, Dr. P.P. Naushad. I also welcome all the participants from near and far colleges to the concluding session, which will be handled by Dr. P.P. Naushad. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your descriptive introduction of our esteemed chief guest. So, let me have the honor to welcome our chief guest for handling the session on revolutionizing academia, integrating tradition, technology, and NEP-driven. I'm not repeating the introduction itself, as you all are eager for the session leading by him. So please.
Thank you. Thank you, Sabna, and thank you, Fatima Rifa, for a nice introduction. Hope I am audible.
You are.
Thank you. At the outset, let me congratulate the IQAC of MES Ponnani College for organizing a faculty development, that is 1 week long faculty development program in association with the Kerala State Higher Education Council. And it is really wonderful to see that we have more than 50 teachers here to attend this faculty development program, and that too is organized by one among the leading colleges of Malabar. I am requested to talk on the tradition, the technology, and pedagogy in the era of New Education Policy 2020. As we all know, our entire higher education system, not only higher education system, our entire education system is going on through tremendous changes, especially after 2020. We know that this change in the structure of higher education and functioning of higher education will be having long lasting effect on Indian higher education. So we need to understand the context of NEP with the background of research in the field of pedagogy after 1990s. There has been tremendous changes in the concept of teaching learning process in the last few decades. One major shift is actually a shift from teacher-centric and disciplinary focused education system to a more learner-centric and interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary education system. If you search for keywords, the major keywords of NEP 2020 you can see that the term interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity or holistic development or learner-centric methods, these are the key words used in NEP 2020, along with other terms. I don't want to elaborate all the terms introduced in the NEP 2020. Of course, we have several criticisms, and especially when we consider an education policy, normally a policy will be a continuation of the previous policies. But the 2020 policy is actually an entirely different approach, which has shifted our education system to a new direction. So we have, of course, criticisms against the several recommendations of the policy. And in Kerala, we have introduced this 4-year undergraduate program FYUGP in schools in tune with NEP and UGC regulations. And we have modified to some extent the FYUGP to match the context of Kerala. And my intention today is to elaborate some of the findings of pedagogic research, which is going on in tune with NEP 2020. How can we use such pedagogic research findings in our classroom teaching? Let me share my presentation. Can you see my presentation now? Can you see the PowerPoint presentation, my screen now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the NEP-driven future learning. So I condense my topic to a 2-3 word thing, that is NEP-driven future learning. I already mentioned that after 1990s, there has been a shift from teacher-centric learning process to a learning process from learner's perspective. So this has been evident in our school education also. So now, after the introduction of NEP 2020, this learner-centric system has introduced in our FYUGP and other higher education programs also. So let me start with the learning outcomes of this session. So after this session, the participants will be able to utilize changing perspectives of curriculum development, transaction, and assessment in tune with the NEP 2020. And the other outcome is to create a positive and inclusive classroom environment in our institution in tune with the latest research in pedagogy and NEP 2020. So these are the two learning outcomes I expect at the end of this session. We know that our entire education system has also changed to outcome-based education, where we need to ensure learning outcome after end of each session. So let me start with curricular issues of higher education institutions in the country, which is highlighted in NEP 2020. And NEP 2020 has highlighted the fragmented nature of our higher education system. So it criticizes the disciplinary focus and compartmentalization of education, where every department, every subject is considered as a separate compartment, and there is no linkage between the subjects, within the subject, and also there is no linkage between knowledge and practice. And I already mentioned that unidisciplinarity was the focus. So we are teaching our subject, maybe physics or history or economics or political science and so on. And we consider our subject as our colony, and we never cross the boundary of our discipline. So traditionally, our higher education institutions are unidisciplinary in focus, and our system less emphasized on learning outcomes. We know that after 2017, we have introduced learning outcome based education in our higher education institutions also. And 2020, our NEP also emphasizes the use of outcome-based approach. And in all the higher education institutions across India, now we have introduced this outcome-based education. But in the previous era, so we never focused on learning outcomes, but we focused on the semester and examinations and scores and grades of the students rather than attaining learning outcomes. And another issue with regard to our higher education system is that there is no true autonomy. What exactly the concept of autonomy? Now we have a large number of autonomous colleges. I think this your MES Ponnani college is also an autonomous college, maybe. But we have large number of autonomous colleges. But what autonomy we enjoy? Whether the autonomy is enjoyed by our students or teachers, or autonomy is enjoyed by management or administrators. So there are several different types of autonomy in higher education institutions. Simply, autonomy means the ability to develop or design and transact curriculum of that particular institution. That is actually the basis of autonomy. And we need to analyze how far we achieved autonomy in true sense. That is one criticism raised by NEP 2020. And another one is inadequate mechanism for merit-based career progression. That is an issue with regard to the career advancement of the different peoples engaged in higher education institutions, and less emphasis on research. If you go through the share of research, global share of research outputs with regard to quality research publication, 35% of the research publications in quality research journals is actually from United States, and 45% from West Europe. So West Europe and United States, they possess 80% of the research outputs globally, and remaining 20%, out of this 20%, only 15% to China and Far East. And India's contribution to research globally is less than 2%. So this is actually because of lesser emphasis on research and more emphasis on teaching at higher education institution. And another one is ineffective governance and regulatory system. Our higher education institutions are governed and regulated by different agencies. For example, we have University Grants Commission as an apex body, and for other institutions, we have different regulatory bodies, including universities and subject-specific or area-specific apex bodies such as AICTE, Bar Council, Medical Council, and so on. So we have a large number of regulatory bodies and governance institutions but they are ineffective. That is one criticism posed by our NEP 2020. And another one is large affiliating universities. MES Ponnani College is an affiliating college, maybe an affiliate, I think now it is an autonomous college. Earlier, it was an affiliated institution under University of Calicut. University of Calicut is the largest affiliating university in the state and which has more than 400 affiliated institutions. In my university, we have around 300 affiliated colleges under our purview. So the most of the human resource and most of the funds are spent for conducting examinations for affiliated institutions rather than focusing on research. So this is one issue raised by NEP 2020, and other is liberal, vocational, and professional as separate. Considering liberal, vocational, and professional as separate institutions or separate thing, NEP proposes integration of liberal education, vocational education, and professional education. So, lack of holistic development. See, traditionally our education system, especially the liberal education system, focus more on theories rather than practice. So it focuses on only the intellectual development of the learners rather than the holistic development, which is all-rounded development of the learners. So lack of holistic development is one issue raised by NEP 2020. And another one is there is no system of meta university. Our universities are functioning within a geographical jurisdiction. And if a student want to join in MES Ponnani College earlier, and he or she want to shift to other institutions in a different part of the country, it was not possible before. So because there was no linkage, there was no transfer of credit from one institution to other institution previously. But NEP 2020, after introducing NEP 2020, we know that FYU in the 4-year undergraduate program also, the credit transfer and credit accumulation, credit redemption is possible in the system. So that concept is meta university, where the traditional boundaries of the universities are not at all a matter for transfer of credit. So these are some of the issues raised by NEP 2020 with regard to higher education in India. Okay, that I already mentioned, no credit transfer. See, what is the vision of NEP on curriculum and pedagogy of higher education? So outcome-based education that we have already discussed, and even before introducing NEP 2020, most of the colleges and universities in India started implementing outcome-based education. I'll discuss about outcome-based education later if time allows. Then innovative and experiential pedagogy. So unfortunately, our higher education system, the pedagogic quality of higher education system, sometimes criticized as more traditional, and it was monotonous rather than experiential. In a monotonous classroom, teacher comes to the class with knowledge, with bundle of knowledge, and share the knowledge through lecture. And maybe that lecture may extend up to 1 hour, and it creates boredom and monotony among learners. That is a long-standing criticism against our pedagogic system in higher education. Maybe in school educations, the pedagogic practices are some more improved towards more innovative and experiential pedagogic practices. And another one is flexible choice-based credit system that we have introduced in our FYUGP program. Student can choose courses of his or her own interest from different baskets of courses. So flexibility is required. And another one is criterion-based grading. And grading system, when we introduced the grading system in our higher education system after 2005, there were several criticism against the grading system. But we should know that research in teaching and pedagogy, it considered the grading system is better than the conventional marking system in several manner, and which has introduced in West Europe and United States even during 1960s. But now we are still thinking about whether grading or marking is better. So criterion-based grading simply means that there will be some predetermined criterion, predetermined intervals, so that if a learner attain that particular criterion, he will be getting that particular grade. Then continuous and comprehensive evaluation. So in our earlier system, we focused on term end evaluation rather than continuous evaluation. But in the current system, in the learner-centric process, we need to focus more on continuous evaluation rather than semester evaluation. Evaluation can be of three types in the new system. One is assessment as learning. The second one is assessment for learning. And the third one is assessment of learning. These three terms are always used in the post-NEP era. Assessment as learning is the self-assessment of learners. And assessment for learning is a continuous assessment. Assessment for learning means assessment for improving learning. So the purpose of continuous assessment is improving the learning process. Then the third type of assessment is assessment of learning. After attaining particular outcomes, you can assess. That is at the end of a semester or end of an year. This is semester end examination or year end examination. That is assessment of learning. So these three types of assessments are clubbed together to assess the holistic development of learners. Because our semester end examination can assess only the knowledge or the intellectual aspect of human behavior. And technology enabled. See, we are in the era of educational technology, digital learning. So in our university, we have started a Center for Online Education. In the Center for Online Education, students from various parts of the world, they enroll for the program, and the enrollment, the learning process is happening through a learning management system, and examination is conducted through a remotely proctored system using a software, and even students can download the mark sheet and the certificates online. So in the entire course of time, entire duration of the program, the learner is located in a remote place. So with a webcam, he can even attend examinations. So in such a technologically enabled environment, our conventional face-to-face higher education system also need to be changed a lot. Then, of course, this NEP argue for strengthening of open and distance learning. And that is why in most states in India, now we have exclusive universities for open and distance learning in tune with IGNOU. And another one is strengthening of teacher education system. So the core of pedagogic innovation lies on teacher education system. So we know that after 2020, NEP 2020, the teacher education system also changed a lot because the current, we know that the B.Ed program, current B.Ed program in our country is of 2-year duration. Now, in most of the centrally sponsored institutions, it has shifted to 4-year integrated B.Ed program that is known as ITEP, Integrated Teacher Education Program. So earlier, the teacher education program, or the degree program in education was of 1 year or 2 year. Now, it comes to a multidisciplinary environment, and the liberal arts and science subjects are clubbed together with education. So strengthening of teacher education is also one major vision of NEP 2020. Proper support system for disadvantaged groups. Unfortunately, in NEP 2020, they always used disadvantaged groups as a terminology. You cannot see the terms such as scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBC, other backward communities, and so on, with regard to our NEP 2020. Because I don't know what is the reason, but they continuously used disadvantaged groups. No mentioning about minorities, scheduled caste, and scheduled tribes in NEP document. But we can consider disadvantaged groups as scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, minorities, and so on. So proper support system must be given to those groups. These are also major vision of NEP 2020 with regard to pedagogy in higher education. And another one is, of course, internationalization. Even the basis of shifting our 3-year bachelor's program to a 4-year honors program is as part of internationalization of education. So we know that in most countries, the honors program or 4 years program is a practice, and we also shifted towards a 4-year program of honors, so that there will be a parity with the education system in other parts of the world. So these are the major recommendations with regard to pedagogy of higher education in NEP 2020. So one point I already mentioned at the beginning is actually a shift of our current education system from teacher centric to learner centric. So what are the major aspects of this shift? In the conventional classrooms, teacher made all the decisions, no autonomy to learners. But in the new system, as per the NEP 2020, and also as per the result of recent pedagogic researches, there must be autonomy to learner to take decision, to learn of his or her own pace, and so on. And in the conventional classrooms, learners were passive listeners. But we need to engage our learners as active participants in learning. And learning was confined within 4 walls of the classrooms. Now it has extended to a wider social context. And knowledge was given and fixed by the teacher. But knowledge is not a given one, it's not a fixed one. Knowledge is evolved and created. In the classroom and through learning process, knowledge is evolved and created. And disciplinary focus, compartmentalization of subject was the feature in the previous era. But now we have shifted from disciplinary focus to interdisciplinarity. And linear development of the learners or linear progress is expected. Linear progress means maybe development of intellectual abilities or cognitive abilities was the focus of our education system. Now, the development of emotions, development of creative domain, development of cognition, development of sociability, development of other aspects of human behavior. So that will be more divergent than linear. So we need to make our students more creative rather than convergent. So in this system, in the teacher-directed system, teacher always gives knowledge to the learners. While in a learner-centric classroom, there will be different types of interaction. In the teacher-directed system, only teacher-people interaction occur. While in the learner-centric system, there will be different types of interaction. Teacher-people interaction, pupil-teacher interaction, and pupil-pupil interaction also. So all the types of interactions are possible in a learner-centric classroom. And the 21st century teacher, the 21st century teacher is actually facing a large number of challenges. See, it is with regard to the accountability, we are accountable to students, we are accountable to our society, we are accountable to our state, we are accountable to entire humanity. So teaching profession is most responsible profession. So accountability is one issue, one challenge. Increased class size. We know that at least in when I interacted with the teachers of our colleges, at least in language classrooms, now the large number of students you can see not only in language classrooms, you can see in the classrooms of minors. So today also there is a college nearby my locality. A teacher told me that for minor hours, large number of students are coming to their department. So in a class, there will be 100 to 150 students in a class. So increased class size is a challenge nowadays. So how to deal with such type of larger classroom? And funding cuts is another issue. We know that because of the financial issues of the universities and colleges and governments and higher education institutions, uh, our institutions functioning very difficult times because of these financial stringencies. And student diversity is one challenge. We know that in our classrooms, we have students from various backgrounds. We have students from different socio-economic backgrounds and students of varying intellectual abilities and capacities. So including the excluded, including everyone to our classroom, and use of differentiated teaching strategies is a challenge nowadays. And preparing students for uncertain future. Our students always ask us uh, the uncertainty, the future, their job prospects, their aspirations, everyone. But we are helpless sometimes. So preparing students for an uncertain future is another challenge faced by teacher. And another one is technological advancement. Technological advancement poses some challenges to teachers also, because we know that our generation of students are well equipped with the technology and they are well versed with the technology, and we the teachers are considered as the part of previous generation, and we are not at all maybe well versed at least in technology. See that sometimes we ask for the assistance of our students to use the equipments, maybe smart boards or such type of digital equipments in the classrooms. And another issue is actually multicultural classrooms that I already discussed, because our students are from various backgrounds. And another one is the issue of standardized assessment. See, some of the recent standardized assessment or global testing movement, our rank is very low. For example, if you consider PISA is a program for international students assessment, and students from India also participated in program for international students assessment in 2014, and our rank was 71. And most of the Scandinavian nations and Far Eastern countries, they came first in the assessment. Our rank was 71, and after 2014 we never participated in the such type of standardized assessment. So when we compare our education system to global standardized assessment, through these standardized assessment test, our rank is very below. So there are some challenges posing towards the teacher, and these are all familiar to you. There are two things: digital natives and digital immigrants. Digital natives are actually those who born after 1980s or even after 1990s. See, most of us born before 1990s. Sometimes, of course, some of you are also born after 1990s. And a famous philosopher, Mark Prensky, classified our generation into two categories: digital natives and digital immigrants. Those who born after 1990s may be considered as digital natives, and they are familiar with all advancements in technology. And what are their features? They are multitaskers, just as computer. For example, my computer, now I can share my window. Along with that, I can minimize this, I can work with the other softwares, I can send a mail and all. So a computer can multitask. Similarly, students of our digital age can also multitask, and they are parallel thinkers. They can think many things at a time. They use multiple media for learning. Therefore, they use multiple resources for learning. But we, those who born before 1990s, our generation, we still focus on text-based material. We use only conventional reference materials for teaching, and we use thinking one by one, sequential thinking, and we can do only one task at a time. So there is actually a gap between digital natives and digital immigrants. We are digital immigrants while our students are digital natives. So there is a gap of with regard to technology. So this divide is explained everywhere. I don't want to elaborate. And even a kindergarten child, this is a popular cartoon you can see everywhere. How do you think my first day of kindergarten went? See the response of the child. They didn't even have Wi-Fi. So see, my little child, 5-year-old, she will get up early in the morning and she will take my mobile phone and she will use my finger to unlock the mobile phone, and she starts viewing YouTube videos and all. So when she go to school and when she return, and she also say that in schools there is no such facilities. So our students are actually well versed in all this technology, even our small children. And see, this is another cartoon. So right, what I did this summer. So if you followed me on Twitter, you would know. So there is nowadays there is no Twitter. Still, such type of social media platforms. You can see what students are doing during vacation time. And now I would like to explain the concept of 4 pillars in education, 4 pillars of learning, which is prescribed by UNESCO, United Nations Education and Scientific and Cultural Organization. It has published a document, namely Learning the Treasure Within. And it emphasized 4 pillars of education, which is to be emphasized at all levels of education, from school education to higher education. These are 4 pillars. Learning to know. So the basic pillar, the basic purpose of education is learning to know. A broad general knowledge with the opportunity to work in depth on a small number of subjects. So learning to know, traditionally our higher education system was focused on learning to know, to acquire knowledge. But other 3 pillars were neglected. Learning to do, but in our new curriculum proposed by NEP 2020, focus on learning to do, to acquire not only occupational skills, but also the competency to deal with many situations and work in teams. So there are different type of skills to be attained through education. That is actually learning to do. And the third one is learning to be, to develop one's personality. That is why we have introduced value addition courses in our FIUGP to develop one personality and to be able to act with a growing autonomy, judgment, and personal responsibility, and so on. So learning to be is the third pillar of learning. And the fourth pillar is learning to live together in a multicultural society. Our society is becoming more and more complex every day. So by developing an understanding of other people and an appreciation of interdependence must be the pillar of education. Especially a country like India require a learning to live together in a multicultural society. So this is another pedagogic concept we need to understand in the context of NEP 2020. So this is popularly known as technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. We need to integrate technology, pedagogy, and content. Unfortunately, in our higher education system, some teachers are good subject matter experts, which means that they are having good content knowledge, but they may be poor in pedagogy or technology. So in higher education, we require integration of technological knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and content knowledge. So this is known as TPAC. And another three related terminology we need to understand in the context of NEP is interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity. We need to understand and need to demarcate all these three for effectively using knowledge in our class. So disciplinarity, of course, we know that we are focusing only on our discipline. So traditionally, our higher education system is criticized as its compartmentalization of disciplines. What is multidisciplinarity? Your MES Ponnani College is a multidisciplinary institution where you teach different subjects in different departments, but the focus of each department is a discipline. Multidisciplinarity means use of many or several disciplines to solve a problem. So here philosophy, sociology, psychology, anthropology. So one problem can be perceived from the viewpoint of philosophy or sociology or psychology or anthropology or economics and history and so on. So you can see a problem from the perspective of different disciplines. That is simply multidisciplinarity. And see, the one issue is approached from different angles or using different disciplinary perspective. So people from different disciplines working together, but each of those people drawing their own disciplinary knowledge. Or maybe a philosopher draw philosophical knowledge while solving a problem, while a sociologist draws a sociological knowledge while solving the same problem. So this is actually multidisciplinarity. So, but the findings of these researchers may never integrated it in a single point. That is multidisciplinarity. And transdisciplinarity is another concept. Transdisciplinarity, normally one discipline crosses the boundary of other disciplines. And I would like to use the concept mixture, the term mixture for transdisciplinarity, because here this is somewhat near to interdisciplinarity, and different disciplines crosses its boundary into others. For example, from my discipline, we teach our students educational sociology, which means that we try to solve some educational problem from sociological perspective. So the subject matter of education and sociology crosses their boundaries. This is simply or educational philosophy and so on. So here, creating a unity of intellectual framework across the disciplinary perspective. We are trying to integrate or trying to unite two disciplines. There are some common areas which can be shared in both the disciplines. That is actually transdisciplinarity. And when we come to interdisciplinarity, see, you can see the differences in the diagram. See, here transdisciplinarity, you can demarcate the boundary, of course, but there are a crossing. But in the interdisciplinarity, you cannot demarcate the boundary. Here, different disciplines are integrated, and you cannot identify the boundaries of discipline here in the interdisciplinarity. So, that deriving inputs from in the interdisciplinary concept, we are deriving inputs from various disciplines. So it creates its own theoretical and methodological identity, and findings are integrated into a coherent form. See, for example, maybe gender studies or inclusive education. In our subject, models of teaching. Models of teaching is integration of different theories of education to use in the classroom, or sustainability or sustainable development. All these are interdisciplinary subject where we try to integrate different theoretical perspective into new one. So it creates its own theory. For example, gender studies, it has its own methodology, its own theoretical framework and all, but it draws the basics from other disciplines and subjects. So this is simply interdisciplinarity. We are integrating knowledge and methods from different disciplines, and we are creating something new out of it. But in the transdisciplinarity, we are using as such, but you can demarcate the boundaries also. But in the interdisciplinarity, you cannot identify the subject boundaries. I try to give you a common example that see, the gender studies or inclusive education, sustainable development, all these are actually interdisciplinary subjects where we use the findings, the knowledge of several disciplines integrating together, and it forms something new. It creates something new, a new discipline that is actually interdisciplinary. And these terms are highlighted in NEP 2020, and our higher education system also must be shifted from a disciplinary focus to a more interdisciplinary curriculum and interdisciplinary teaching. And this is another concept we learned in the learning ladder. There are different levels of attainment by the learner, and this learning ladder is provided by Anderson and Rathole, and this is also known as revised Bloom's taxonomy. I think you are familiar with this table because we are using this table in the outcome-based education framework, and your college is also following the outcome-based curriculum. So there are different levels of writing learning outcome. So these cell, for example, remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create. These are different levels of cognitive process of a human being. Remember is the lowest level, while create is the highest cognitive process. And with regard to knowledge, there are 4 levels: factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, and metacognitive knowledge. Actually, these 2 processes, cognitive processes and knowledge dimension, intersects. For example, remember factual knowledge. The first cell represent remember factual knowledge. Or the second one, remember conceptual knowledge. Remember procedural knowledge. Remember metacognitive knowledge. In such a manner, you can identify 24 cells in this particular table. And this table is utilized for designing curriculum and planning classroom transaction. And also for assessment. This basic table is used because of the lack of time. I don't want to explain it more because this is part of outcome-based education. I think you have already learned this concept. Then knowledge categorized into factual. I already mentioned knowledge categorized into knowledge in every subject can be categorized into four levels. The first level, the primary level, is factual knowledge. They are isolated or discrete content elements such as facts, terms, places, person, years. The knowledge about a term or a place or a person or years, everything comes under factual knowledge. And conceptual knowledge is actually principles, laws, theories, models, and so on. Procedural knowledges are knowledge of the process to complete a task. For example, every subject possesses its own procedures. Science has scientific method. Languages has its own methodology of generating knowledge. Social sciences also having their own methodology for generating knowledge. So procedural knowledge is actually simply methodologies or processes of generating knowledge. That is also part of knowledge in the subject matter. And finally, metacognitive knowledge is the highest level of knowledge where learners are able to regulate their own cognitive processes. See, if you are thinking about your own thinking process, if you are regulating your own learning process, that is simply metacognition. If you are a student of mathematics, if you learn how to learn mathematics, along with learning mathematics, you also need to learn how to learn mathematics. So similarly, in every subject, there is a metacognitive knowledge that is something beyond the conventional knowledge of the subject. So these are the 4 levels of knowledge in a subject. And I don't want to explain this because there are different modes of transaction. Didactic approach is the conventional approach where the teacher was the center, while in Socratic approach, question answer method, it was more interactive. But the current teaching learning process focuses on a facilitative approach. Please, what is our time? 8 or 8:30? Can I take a few more minutes?
It's 8:30, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I would like to explain a concept which is familiar to you, especially those who are well versed in pedagogy, this term is always used, constructivism. And NEP 2020 also emphasized learners' construction of knowledge. Theoretically, constructivism has two types. One is social constructivism, and the other is cognitive constructivism. So in the cognitive constructivism, we collect input from environment, we process it in your mind, and we generate something new as outputs. In a computer, we know that there are input devices. Maybe you are typing something, you are calculating something, and computer's central processing unit will process it, and it will provide you answer. Similarly, we are also, and we human beings are also an information processing mechanism, and we receive input from environment, we process it in your mind, and we generate the answers or output. So this is actually the basic idea. So what is the teacher's task here is to provide input to the learners, to provide some problem situation, to provide some situation to the learners, so that learners will process themselves through their cognition and they will generate the answer. That is actually the basis of cognitive constructivism, which was proposed by several theorists, including Jean Piaget, Brunner, Ausubel, and several other psychologists. I think some of you have at least completed your B.Ed program. Those who completed B.Ed program, these theorists are very popular. And other type of constructivism is social constructivism, which emphasizes synergy. Synergy means group energy. When learners learn together, or when a group of learners sit together and they try to solve a problem in group, they can solve the problem better than when they sit individually. So a group energy is generated when we work together. That group energy is known as synergy. So social constructivism utilizes a group energy to generate new knowledge. And there are several psychologists associated with this social constructivist theory, including Lev Vygotsky and also Howard Gardner or Daniel Goleman and several other thinkers. I don't want to elaborate those theories because of the time constraint. And another concept in the current era, relevant to current era, is critical pedagogy. And critical theories, all this actually critical pedagogy is the output of the critical theories emerged after 1960s. And this critical pedagogy was a term coined by a very famous Brazilian thinker, Paulo Freire. And Freire believed that critical pedagogy is a teaching approach which helps the learner to question and challenge domination. In every society, in every social situation, including classroom, there is a power structure. There is a power structure. For example, in families, there is a power structure. In society, in community, in religion, everywhere, there are power structures. In classrooms also, there are power structure. Maybe who is powerful? In conventional classroom, teachers are powerful and students are powerless. But the critical pedagogy argue that it is a teaching approach where students, means students are conventionally subordinates, they can question and challenge the dominant group, maybe the teachers in the class. So simply critical pedagogy is a teaching approach which is promoted through dialogue between teacher and student. It is dialogical approach, dialogical method. And Paulo Freire criticized the current education system as banking system of education, which means that we deposit money in banks. Similarly, in our conventional classrooms, we try to deposit knowledge among learners. And at the time of examination, we try to get some knowledge back. Similarly, in bank also, we return our money using checks. So banking system followed oppressive attitude in the classrooms. We cannot question our teachers. So that was our conventional conventional system of education, which is criticized by Paulo Freire as banking system of education. And in such a system, our student cannot respond against the inequalities of the society, respond against the current problems of the society. And that situation criticized Paulo Freire as culture of silence. So even educated people cannot respond against the problems of the society, what is happening in and around the person's individuality, maybe his family, what is happening in his family, what is happening in his society. He or she cannot respond. So he or she is kept locked in a silence because of the conventional system of education. That is known as culture of silence. So critical pedagogy promote a behavior of learners that always question and challenge domination. So this is the simple idea of critical pedagogy proposed by Paulo Freire, which is also a line of thinking in learning from learners' perspective. And another research in pedagogy, when we talk about learning from learners' perspective or learner-centric pedagogy, is learning styles. So our students' mode of learning or their preferred mode of learning is different. Some learners are visual learners. If you show some pictures or video, they can learn better. Some other learners are auditory learners. For example, in our, I already mentioned that in our university, we are having UGC entitled online programs. In online program, we normally provide students video content, recorded video classrooms, along with the text materials. So what some students prefer to read the material. Some other students prefer to view the video classes. And some students only hear the audio part of the video recorded classrooms. See, these are different preferences of the learners. Our students in the classrooms are also having their own learning style preferences, maybe visual learners, auditory learners, or read and someone prefer read or write, or some are kinesthetic learners. They always want movement while learning, physical movement while learning. See, another categorization is physical learning. Physical learning style simply means that students, even seating arrangement is actually part of physical learning styles. Some students prefer to sit in chair. Some students prefer to sit in sofa, like that. If you want to learn at least now you can check yourself where you are sitting now. You are sitting in your chair, maybe most comfortable to you. So we have our own preferences of even seating arrangement. So this is actually physical style. And there are sociological style. Some students want to sit in groups to learn, and some others want to sit alone while learning. That is actually their sociological preferences. And some environmental preferences also you can observe. Some students want to sit in the classroom, while others want to sit in maybe outside the classroom, maybe beneath the trees, or in the park, or in the playground, and so on. And some others want to sit in library for learning in a calm, silent atmosphere. And other class of learners are psychological learners. They always want a type of motivation to learn. They are psychological learners. So you can see different types of learners in the class where the conventional monotonous lecture method will not be fruitful to attain learning outcomes. That is very important. And another category of learning style is actually serialistic style, holistic style, and versatile style. So this is actually attributed to discipline specific. For example, those who perform well in mathematics, science, and or science related subjects, they are more serialistic in nature. For example, if you want to solve a mathematical problem, you should have a type of serialistic thinking or step-by-step thinking. In science also, you require such type of thinking. But in social sciences and languages, we require a type of holistic learning wider reading, and development of a perspective by the learner. These are actually the outcomes of a social science subject or a language. So holistic style is another preferred learning style in humanities, of course. And other category of learning style is versatile learning style, where some students are equally comfortable with this realistic and holistic. So they can study both science and mathematics. In such a perspective, NEP also, if a student can take a major from maybe social science, but he or she can take minors or multidisciplinary courses from other disciplines, including science or mathematics. In our university, we have a model graduate school, and we have 30 departments in Mahatma Gandhi University. So all the 30 departments are offering courses for FYUGP. So one student joined as a major, joined for a major in chemistry, and she is doing a minor in development studies in my department. So in such a flexibility is possible if a learner is versatile in his or her learning styles. This is very important. So we need to understand the learning styles of learners before we provide, we offer courses, before we design curriculum. This is very important. And another important thing with regard to recent research in pedagogy is approaches to studying. Our students approach their study task differently. Some learners always go for surface level. Surface level means shallow learning. They want to know the peripherals. They want to score pass mark in the examination and so on. So their perspective itself is surface approach, shallow approach in their learning. And some other learners are deep learners. They always go for additional reference materials. They always go for different sources of knowledge other than classroom teaching. Normally those normally those learners are deep learners. And another category of learners are strategic learners. The strategic learners, first they will go through the learning outcomes. What is expected from them? They will refer learning outcomes first. Learning outcomes are provided in the syllabus. And they will also go through the syllabus, and they will identify the strategies to attain outcomes, and they develop their own strategy, and even analyzing, discussing, and asking questions to teachers. So there are several strategies actually to attain learning outcomes, and they will ensure attainment of learning outcomes of their own. Normally, in the current era, we promote strategic learners than surface and deep learners. Of course, deep learning is to be promoted, but with some type of strategy, only the deep learners can be successful and can attain various type of skills proposed in the new era or in the new curriculum and policies. Now, another concept, another research, recent research with regard to recent research in pedagogy is orientations in learning. So, what if you can check your learners' orientation? Some learners are reproducing oriented learners. They want to only by heart, only to remember things, nothing more than that. They are actually a shallow level learning. And some other learners are meaning oriented learners. They want to know the meaning of the concepts and all. And some other learners are achieving oriented. They are always looking for marks. When there is an internal mark is published, there will be several complaints and so on. So those learners are actually achieving oriented learners. And some other learners, you need to identify some other learners. They are always futuristic. They always choose courses with their own choice, choose courses very intellectually, and they always they will identify their capacities, their learning style and all, and they will choose courses to match their career goals, to match their capacities, and also to match the learning outcomes or program outcomes prescribed in the curriculum. So such an academic oriented learners also you can see in the classroom. So you need to make your learners to convert them towards academically oriented learners rather than reproducing or achieving oriented learners. And another recent research in pedagogy, which is in tune with the NEP 2020, is pathologies in learning. Pathology is a term used in medical science to identify or to diagnose the reasons for illness. But here, pathology simply means there are some issues or illness in learning process. Globetrotting is a learning process in which globetrotting is a learning process in which learner never reach a conclusion. This is a type of unbalanced serialistic style. We have already learned about the serialistic and holistic style. If a learner is in an unbalanced serialistic, he or she always search for differences, search for minute details and so on, and he or she never reach a conclusion. Globetrotting is an issue. And imprudence is another issue. Without going further deeper into the subject matter, learner arrive at a conclusion. That is imprudence. So the globetrotting is a delayed learner where learner never reach a conclusion. Imprudence is another feature of learner where the learner reach a conclusion too readily. So these are the two types of pathologies identified in modern times, especially our learners at higher education. This is another theory proposed. This is my research area also. If you analyze the thinking styles of our students, there are different types of thinkers. And this is a theory proposed by Robert J. Sternberg. And Sternberg's theory proposes that there are three functions of learning styles, so thinking styles. Some learners are legislative thinkers. We know that all these concepts are taken from political science. Legislative, what is the function of a legislature? It is to form or to frame laws. So legislative learners are always creative learners. They always try new path, new ways to learn. While executive learners try to execute the direction of the teachers or try to learn exactly what teacher taught in the class. And the third category of learners, judicial learners, they always evaluate which is right, which is wrong, and so on. So they are type of judicial learners. So you can see these three types of learners in the classroom. Another classification of thinking style is levels of learning, levels of thinking, global thinking and local thinking. Global thinking, mostly students in social sciences, humanities, or languages. They prefer global thinking, while students in the science subject prefer local thinking. So we need to understand students' thinking or intellectual style so that we can provide learning experiences accordingly. And another classification is monarchic learner. Monarchic means a learner can focus only one thing at a time. And oligarchic learner means a learner can focus multiple things at a time. Oligarchy is a form of government in which a group of people rules a country. Anarchic means anarchic learners, as teachers, we need to identify anarchic learners. Anarchic learners are always in confusion. What to learn, how to learn, when to learn. They're always in confusion. Those learners are anarchic learners. And sorry for the spelling mistake in the hierarchy. Hierarchic learners, simply, they are always successful learners. They always set a preference, set a hierarchy. When and where, how, when, all this will be decided in advance. Those learners are known as hierarchic learners. So we as teachers need to identify students' intellectual styles or thinking styles so that we can teach them accordingly. This is a cartoon. Unfortunately, see, I expect you all to be independent, innovative, critical thinkers who will do exactly as I say. See, you are asking your students to be creative. And along with that, you're asking your students to copy or do exactly as you say. So it is a paradox in our classroom. Another term proposed in NEP 2020 is actually reflection or reflective practices. So reflection is simply going or returning to experiences. Suppose after this session, after this 1.5 hours of session, if you are returning to experiences, if you are returning to the slides I have presented, this is simply reflection. And you can attend some feeling, you can attend some, you can remember some, for example, you are remembering learning styles and you are checking whether it is these type of students are there in your classroom and all. That is simply attending feelings. And again, re-evaluating experiences. Re-evaluating experience means that you can re-evaluate experience. You can arrive at your own conclusion through evaluating your experiences. This is simply reflection. So reflection is promoted in modern classrooms. So in the conventional lecture-based classroom, you cannot expect much reflection from your learners. But if it is a learner-centric pedagogic practices or experiential learning, it will be reflective in nature. It is simply a form of response to the classroom experiences. And metacognition, I already explained. Metacognition is the latest buzzword in pedagogy. Simply, it is learner's ability to learn how to learn a subject. I already mentioned about, for example, learning mathematics. Along with learning mathematics, you learn to learn mathematics. Along with learning English, you need to learn how to learn English and so on. So learning how to learn is a part of learning process. It is metacognition. It is simply self-regulation. You are regulating your learning process, or you are thinking about your own thinking. It is cognition about cognition and so on. So you plan, monitor, and evaluate your learning process. This is simply metacognition. I don't want to explain the concept of outcome-based education because this has been explained everywhere. This is also, outcome-based education is also a concept proposed in NEP 2020. And finally, this is the last part I want to explain. We know that our classroom has a number of limitations. We cannot directly use all the learner-centric methods in the classroom. That is why, because of the increasing number of students in the class, crowded classrooms, because of the seating arrangement in the class and so on, we are compelled to use lecture methods or expository based teaching methods. But if you use expository teaching also, you can make it more interactive. For example, you can use teaching skills. There are different types of teaching skills. For example, illustrating with example is a teaching skill. So if you teach a concept, you need to identify live examples or examples related to the life of the students. That is actually a skill. So you need to plan your teaching, your lecture in the class using different types of teaching skills, and ask always a problem or challenging questions in the classes, and avoid unnecessary mannerisms in the class. Sometimes if you use a lecture method, sometimes we are over conscious about your dress, and some teachers repeatedly use some words, and students always focus on those words only. So these are all some type of mannerisms. You try to avoid mannerisms and try to use humors to engage and to motivate our learners to sit in the class. And illustrative examples, use of advanced organizers. Illustrative example I already, use of advanced organizer means simply you need to provide the full background knowledge before teaching a new concept or a new theory. Otherwise, students cannot meaningfully learn the concept. So try to use advanced organizers in the class. And traditionally, teachers are using prepared notes in the class. Try to avoid using prepared notes in the class. You prepare well in the class and use your lecture without using a note. Clarify aims or outcomes at the beginning. Always in a lecture, you start the outcomes. You explain the outcomes to the learners. After this 1 hour session, this will be your outcome. This will be the aim of this particular class. You can explain that at the beginning and bridge your learning with already learned content and life outside the classroom. Bridging, two types of bridging. One is bridging the previous knowledge with new knowledge, and also bridging new knowledge with life outside the classroom or life of the students. And always review and summarize your classes at the end. These are some of the points need to be utilized in our classrooms if you are using lecture. I don't recommend to use lecture always in your classroom, because this is the era of learner-centric classrooms. So at the end, I'll I'll tell you the famous quote of Alvin Toffler. Alvin Toffler's famous book, Future Shock. It says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. See, this is our one major issue. We learned in a particular manner, particular style, and we are not able to unlearn our style of learning. But this is the era of unlearning and relearning. Then only you can be a successful teacher and a successful learner. With these words, I conclude this short lecture on future NEP-driven learning in the future. Thank you. Thank you all. Now, you can ask any doubts or queries with regard to my presentation. Thank you. And I can share my PowerPoint presentation to the organizers. If you want, you can refer further. And I suggest to go through some of the recent researches in pedagogy. And all these recent researches can be summarized into a single key term, namely learning from learner's perspective. That is actually the basic perspective with regard to pedagogy in NEP 2020. It is learning from learner's perspective. So traditionally, learning was considered from the teacher's perspective. Now we need to consider learning from the learner's perspective. So that is actually the core of my presentation that you can refer further. Thank you.
Does anybody of you have any doubts?
I think there is no question or query. So there is a question in the chat box. During 2014, India was in 71st in ISA. Now, where are we after implementation of NEP 2020? Is there any development in rural India? That's really a good question. Actually, India never participated in PISA. It is not ISA, it is PISA, Program for International Student Assessment. In PISA 2014, India attended once, but after that, India never participated in PISA. Earlier, Finland, that is why we always talk about Finland model. Finland was the first rank always after 2009, but now it has changed to Far East. Even Singapore, Japan, all these nations now came first in the rank. In India, after 2014, India never participated in this PISA. But I don't believe in this global ranking system, but it is, I think, still for only this is used for global comparison. But we need to understand our education system, which is rooted in our own cultural and historical background. So we cannot compare much with the international standards. But of course, these are global benchmarks. Thank you for the question by Shalma. Yes, thank you. Once again, thank you all. I express my sincere thanks and gratitude to all the faculty members, all the organizers, all the members of the IQAC for inviting me to interact with you, and I'm happy to see some familiar faces. I think Jobin is here. Jobin, Sabna, and several other familiar faces. I wish all success in your future career. I once again express my sincere thanks and gratitude for giving me an opportunity to interact with you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for leading this session beautifully. And I really appreciate your dedication as I've been noticing that you have been coughing multiple times, but instead of just ending up the session or leading to another things, you've been going on with sharing the pieces of knowledge. And thank you so much for that. To express the gratitude formally, let me invite Dr. Umesh CV, Assistant Professor from Department of Chemistry of MES Ponnani College, to deliver the vote of thanks. So please.
Hello. Hello. Hope I am audible. Evening all. Respected dignitaries on the session. NOUSHAD sir, it was a nice talk. NOUSHAD sir delivered a wonderful talk on NEP-driven future. He starts with learning outcomes and point out liberal vocational and professional aspects, and point out three different types of assessments. Similarly, digital natives, digital immigrants, generation gaps. Similarly, four pillars of learning and different dimensions of NEP. Finally, expository teaching. It was very informative and interesting session. I extend our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Dr. P.P. NOUSHAD, for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us today. Your knowledge and experience have provided us information and inspiration. On behalf of MES Ponnani College and our participants gathered here, thank you, sir. Similarly, we know as we come to the conclusion of this enlightening FTP program, it is my pleasure to deliver vote of thanks. First day, Dr. Biju from Central University, Tamil Nadu, deliver an excellent talk on next generation pedagogy. Second day, an excellent talk and interactive session handled by Dr. Karthia Banu from Inspire Soft Tech Solutions, Chennai, on the topic well-being, work balance. Similarly, third day, Dr. Thomas George from Lead College of Management delivered a talk on future careers. Yesterday, Dr. Shailesh Shivan, given from a KSHEC, handled a session on the topic research landscape in the AI era. Similarly, today, Dr. NOUSHAD PP from MG University delivered an excellent talk on NEP. All technical sessions are very relevant in the current scenario, and all are very informative and interactive sessions. First, I extend our gratitude on behalf of MES Ponnani College to all resource persons for sharing their creative ideas, valuable insights, and expertise. We are truly honored to have had them here. A sincere thanks to our organizing team, IQAC, especially Dr. V.U. Amira from Department of Chemistry, MES Ponnani College, for her meticulous planning and coordination. I also thank Principal Dr. A. Subai and management and teaching staff and non-teaching staff for their continuous support. I also thank the technical support team for ensuring all the arrangements were in place, that everything seamlessly. Your behind the scenes efforts are greatly appreciated. I would like to thank all participants within the college and outside the college for your patient listening and support. On behalf of MES Ponnani College and those who have all gathered here, thank you all. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, today marks the final day of our SDP. I'm well aware that you all are electing to bid farewell to this 1 week program. We have been learning new things, discussing it, and sharing pieces of knowledge. But as the time comes, we have to. Thank you guys so much for sparing your 1.5 hours on a daily basis to learn and learn together these days. Let me have the honor to summarize each of the days as a capsule. Dr. Umesh has already mentioned it, but as a part of my duty, let me do it once again. So for the first day, we have the privilege of attending the session led by Dr. Biju K, Assistant Professor, Department of Education from Central University of Tamil Nadu, on the topic Next-Gen Pedagogy and Innovative Teaching Methods. And the main topics in detail was flipped classrooms, microlearning and hybrid teaching models, gamification, AR or VR and immersive learning for arts and sciences, teaching Gen Z and Alpha, attention, engagement and mindset, developing AI-powered lessons plans and assessments. And on day 2, we had Dr. Karthia Banu, founder and CEO of Inspire Software Solutions, Chennai, and she led the session on well-being, work-life balance, and the future of academia. And she discussed on the topic the mental health crisis in academia, solutions and support systems, sustainable research, and teaching practices in a fast-changing world, academic leadership and policy making, preparing for institutional roles, reimagining higher education in the digital age. And for the third day, we had Dr. Thomas George, aka Tommen, Director of Lead College of Management, on Future of Careers, Skill-Based Education and Industry Linkages, in which he shared how academia must evolve with industry and interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research building academia industry government collaborations. On the fourth day, which was yesterday, we had Dr. Shailesh Sivan, Assistant Professor at Department of Computer Science from NOUSHAD, on the research landscape in the AI and data-driven era, in which he discussed AI in research, tools for literature review, data analysis, and writing, ethical AI, deepfakes, and academic integrity challenges using AI tools for research writing, data visualization, and citation management. And on the last day, today, we had the privilege to have Dr. NOUSHAD PP, Director, School of Gandhian Thought and Development Studies, MG University, on the topic Revolutionizing Academia, Integrating Tradition, Technology, and NEP-Driven Future Learning. And as you have heard the insights he has shared, the future of higher education, AI, automation and emerging disciplines, multidisciplinary and NEP-driven approaches, personalized learning with AI and adaptive technologies, balancing tradition and technology in teaching and research. Now, it's time to bid farewell to the program that we have been attending for 1 week. A sincere gratitude from the depth of my heart to all of the participants who have been with us for this 1 week, whether it's on the screen or behind the screen. Let me thank you all on the behalf of MES Ponnani College. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.